You're listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground Podcast. Once again, we appreciate you joining us each and every week as we are approaching our 2-year anniversary and our 100th episode coming up here in a few weeks. So excited and so grateful that you guys have been with us each and every week as we tell these stories and have been part of the Hazard Ground community, and just love the feedback from everybody, and the feedback that we get on iTunes through those reviews that you guys leave is awesome. Keep leaving those reviews for us. It means the world, and it certainly helps us get the word out there and grow the Hazard Ground community. So again, get on iTunes. It doesn't have to be a long review. Just leave us a comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, and we certainly read them all and take them all into account as we go forward. I want to remind you guys about our sponsors page on our website, hazardground.com. Click on that tab, the sponsors tab. Support all the sponsors that support the Hazard Ground podcast. They also help us keep things up and running, and certainly some great veterans organizations and veterans charities that they're all part of. So you guys in the Hazard Ground community are a big part of why we're successful, as are our sponsors. Together, both of you guys are continuing to make things great. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hazard Ground Podcast. Keep up with the shows, keep up with the podcast and what we have going on. Again, our 100th episode coming up very, very soon. So excited about that, and very, very excited about this week's guests. Joining us this week, we often go outside the bounds of military members to tell different stories or stories that are parallel to military life, and this one is one that we are incredibly excited to tell because of the nature of it. The film that's coming out is Sergeant Will Gardner. Starring in it is Max Martini, and it's produced by Michael Hagerty. Max helped write it and direct it. You may know Max from other previous films, such as 13 Hours, where he played Oz. He was also in NCIS. Michael's film credits include a long list of acting. You've seen him in Nash Bridges, Dark Skies, but the film is Sergeant Will Gardner, and both Michael Hagerty and Max Martini join us right now on the Hazard Ground podcast. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
So great to be on the show and to have your support. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
All right, the first voice you heard was Max's. The second one is Mike's, just for future reference. And guys, let's start kind of back at the beginning, because look, you know, I've said this for a while now. Military films that we see nowadays, they are our parents' Westerns, right? Like in the 50s and 60s, John Wayne made dozens of Westerns, and everybody had a Western movie. That's what kind of defined the times. And war movies, as a note, kind of define the times now in the post 9/11 era. There's a lot of them made. So I'm curious as to how this whole film came about. Max, you wrote this thing. What was kind of the inspiration for it?
Well, you know, the process kind of, well, actually the thought came to me while I was shooting a series called The Unit. It was a TV show based on The Unit on CAG, and we ran for about 4 years. We were on CBS, and we had quite a large military fan base and following. So at a certain point, I think it was probably our second season, myself and a few of the castmates decided to go to the Middle East. So we went twice. The first trip we went to Iraq and Afghanistan. The second trip we went to just Afghanistan. And on the first trip, I was standing on a tarmac. This young Army Ranger was staring at me, and I waved him over, and he recognized me from the show. We started talking. And to give you the short of it, we exchanged information. We stayed in contact while he was in combat. He had survived 2 IEDs. I think the second of which he was the only survivor. He lost his team. And during our communications, he started to voice concerns that he was having regarding anger issues and sleep deprivation, and things that were symptomatic of TBI. And at the time, I'm not a doctor. I didn't have anything to offer other than to console him. So, but I came back. This is at the head of the war, and I came back and I thought, this could be kind of an opportunity, to serve a little bit. Not serving in the military is something that I've often regretted, and if I could write a film that would not only sort of help maintain a level of awareness, but also raise money for charity, it could be an amazing thing. And I'll tell you a little bit about how this film differs from other military films that you might see. But so Mike and I set out on this journey to once the script was written to find funding. And it wasn't the easiest. It wasn't the easiest road, but it took us a little longer. Mike, you want to chime in and some of our.
So Max and we got introduced by a former Marine. Well, I guess once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. Freddie Joe Farnsworth, who was a stunt coordinator, and he gave me the script, and I loved it. And we went on this road, and it was one of those roller coasters where we'd have the movie, like the money, and we'd get, on the lot and have offices, and we're going, and then the money would fall out, and then we'd have discussions with investors and say, look, we're giving 30% of this movie to 3 charities. And sometimes that would be the hurdle, but we always, and kudos to Max for always sticking to that, the purpose of this film was to raise awareness, raise money, and tell a story that a lot of people are afraid to tell, but have that we feel that is very, very impactful.
Guys, let me ask you real quick. I'm sorry to cut you off, but you said you took the trip to Iraq. Why did you take that? I mean, it's funny because I've been fortunate enough to rub elbows with actors and people in NFL and professional sports, and they often ask me, hey, I was thinking about taking a trip over there. Do you think I should go? Why should I go? Is it worth it? And I always tell people this when they ask me that. I said, well, look, you don't have to go. Like, no one's sitting in Iraq thinking, I wonder when Max Martini's going to come visit. I've really been wondering. I mean, we've got 1,000 things. No one's wondering. Like, for the people who show up, it's great. But I always tell people, look, if you have any reservations, don't go. There's no legitimate reason for you to be there. And no one's life is going to be tragically altered if you don't show up. So I'm always curious why you had this desire to go.
I in all honesty, I grew up in a family of, military, law enforcement. My mother was in law enforcement. I'm very aware of the sacrifice and the risk and the bravery that it takes to put yourself in the shoes of a military man or woman or first responder, and and I'm a big supporter, man. And I also am aware that the average age of our service member is very young, and because our show was so immensely popular amongst the troops, I just wanted to go and give the guys and gals a break from the grind. And there were so many amazing moments, man. I mean, it was really life changing for me. But I remember just one of the things, we showed up in this tent. This guy was I guess he was ill or something, but he was all laid out, and he was literally watching our show when we walked in.
That's
behind
awesome.
him.
That's
and
great.
Tapped him on the shoulder. I can't even tell. He flipped. And,
what is going on?
Right. He's just like looking at things going, wait a minute, this looks familiar.
He couldn't believe it. And we went over, I would do stuff like, Robert Patrick would, challenge me against anybody in the whatever company we were talking to, in a race up some friggin' hill in Afghanistan, and we would get involved with these guys, and it was so much fun for them, and it was so much fun for us, and and we ventured outside of the green zone, and we went to these little camps that were getting rocked daily, and it was just, it was so refreshing for them. So, look, again, what it boils down to is I just know what's going on over there, and I know what it takes to be a part of that service, and I'm humbled, and I'm proud to have our military do that for us.
So Mike, when you come across someone like Max who has that passion. Not only, has the acting chops for it, but has that passion, is that something that you look at and go, okay, we have to kind of build on this and build momentum from it?
Yeah, one of the great things about having Max as a partner, and we didn't know each other when we started this process almost 10 years ago, is that there's no quit. And I'd produced a few films beforehand, and that's what you need, because it's a grind making an independent film and getting it out, and the highs and lows and trying to figure out things and being creative, and that's the thing that gets you excited, because when it's you've been working for 16 hours and you just want to go home, but your buddy's like, let's go, give me another cup of joe and let's keep on going. That's infectious.
One of the things, sorry, just to interject, is
no, go.
That made it so difficult to find money for this is that it's not the movie or the story never screamed sales, commercial sales. Like it's not an overtly commercial film, and it really is a passion project, and
it's a very American film.
But it's a very American film. But it's also not about aliens. It doesn't have any TNA in it. It's not. It's just not. It's not. It doesn't satisfy what they're generally looking for. And it's also not about a Navy SEAL, and it's not about a CAG guy. It's not about a Tier 1 operator. It's really about a regular infantryman, and who's dealing with some post-combat conditions and situations, and in the movie, and this is what a point I wanted to make, is what separates us is that in the film, the film is not about 2 hours of watching somebody suffer. It's about a central character that finds himself in a really difficult place when we meet him, and heals. And so the story is a journey that you follow this character on during the healing process. And the idea behind the film is that once he's healed, then he's capable of healing other veterans. So, hopefully it will inspire people that are, I'm going to backtrack for a second. The guy that I was talking about, the Ranger that was injured, that I was in correspondence with, he was terrified to come forward and ask for help. He was really, when he came back stateside, it just spiraled. He lost his job. He was homeless at a certain point, and I think there was a fear of being ridiculed. There was a fear of being stigmatized. I even demoted. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I feel like he had mentioned that at some point. So, I think we've chipped away at that by this year 2018. But I still think it exists. But ideally, it's really about a healing and a way to inspire others that it's okay to come forward and get help.
Yeah, you hit a real sweet note with our audience from the standpoint of about it just being a regular infantryman. And so much of what we do on the podcast, it's those stories. That was the inspiration for this whole thing, was that, look, there's American Sniper and Lone Survivor, right? And we know those because they're books that were made in major motion pictures. And, the story is in and of itself is so unusual. But this podcast wants to reach the regular Joes that, have a story. Because everybody who goes through what we go through in combat, that military experience is unique and individual to them. And two guys sitting side by side in the same fight will view that battle from vastly different experiences depending on where they come from and who they are. And to tell that story individually from that person, I think, is the core of kind of what we do, but it's also the core of the human condition, right? I mean, everybody is a product of their experience, and how you view it is dynamically different. I think from what I'm hearing you tell me about the film is something that would draw me to it. And I think it would draw a lot of military members to it because we all experience it differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, well, one, it's the average, Joe that comprises so much of our military. I mean, like these are the stories that you don't hear, and,
right.
And I think it's important to tell, man. And I think that, when you get out, when the movie gets out, people will be more apt to identify with this story than Lone Survivor, because this is a guy that they know that they are. This is a guy that their families know. This is a guy that So I think that our story will resonate with a really big audience in the U.S. and I think it'll be appreciated.
So, Mike, when you get approached with this screenplay, and Max is behind it, and obviously, you say you didn't know him well, but his catalog of work was obviously well documented. Are you somebody who picks apart this script and looks for flaws with it, or is it something right away when you started to read, you go, all right, I'm in on this, you've got me?
I would say that the best thing about it taking so long to make this is that the script kept on getting better and better, and that's kudos. I would say, well, what about this? A couple of times, but really, I got to give it up to my partner Max that he just he didn't want to rest on making it good. He wanted to really strive to make it great. And we'd go, around and around sometimes. He wasn't afraid to try something and go, okay, well that didn't work, so let's go back to the drawing board. And so that's what I look at, because I kind of look at, I'm going to be with this script or in this movie for the next 5-6 years. So I've got to be honest and say, this is what I think this movie should be. And if we are on the same page, then great, let's go on this journey. And if we're not, then, no harm, no foul. And obviously with this one, it was, we were on the same page and just kept on trying to make it better and better.
To that end, Go ahead, Max. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in the process of writing and the preparatory work that was involved, because at this point or at that point in the game, I had so many military buddies, and unfortunately, quite a few that had injuries, and so they were just incredibly helpful with information and. And then I reached out to my social media friends, and I got video testimonials. I got on the phone with people. They were so forthcoming and so collaborative, and it really fueled the writing. And as Mike and I kept going, and the script kept changing, and I would get feedback from Mike or from people on the Hollywood side, and then I'd get feedback from the military side, and some of my, tier 1 guys helped me, orchestrate the combat, and I brought in my Navy SEAL buddies to really do a lot of the running and gunning. It looked authentic, and it came together so beautifully. And then you have this final product, and you go, oh God, now we got to send it out and see, if it's really value, because we think it's amazing, but and then we got the money, and we started crewing up, and Mike can attest to this. I mean, we would meet people in our production offices in New Mexico, and they would come in and they would literally beg to be part of this. And by the way, mind you, we're not paying. I mean, we're paying.
Yeah, this was on a small,
We're paying a fraction of what these guys make. We got, just A-list crew members and A-list actors, and across the board, the actors were petitioning to be. I mean, I had we're offering scale to these big stars, and their agents would call and say, what's going on with that role? Have you cast it yet? My client really wants to be a part of the movie, and and you really need to use my client. I mean, it was amazing, and what was really refreshing, I think Hollywood gets a bad rap often, but there was an overlying support of the military and the story and the cause and the charitable effort that was fueling us, and it really it reinvented my hope, and my just in Hollywood that I mean, the bad rap exists. It's politics aside. I think when people think that when they they think of Hollywood, they think of just an extremely liberal town that doesn't support the military, and it's really not true. And
right.
And the great thing about this film is that it's apolitical. It doesn't take a political slant at all. It's really about a soldier and and can be appreciated from both sides of the line. But it was nice to see that support.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody
go ahead,
really
Mike.
stepped up. I was just gonna say everybody just really stepped up, and yeah, exactly what Matt said. It gives you hope and excitement, and it just makes you want to do it again and again.
I mean, you talked about all the people you brought in to bring in the authenticity factor. And me, somebody, I'm just built that way. Like when I see a military film and I could tell how much Hollywood bastardizes it. And there's valid reasons for that. I'm not debating that. But to me, it makes it lose a little luster. American Sniper had a lot of bastardized stuff. Lone Survivor was completely bastardized. And I'm sitting there going, when you read the book, and you can feel like you're in combat with the guy, like you're running alongside of Marcus Luttrell down the mountain, and you don't get that sense from the movie. And again, some of that's justified. I understand that. So I certainly appreciate the desire for the authenticity. But I guess where I am really curious about, was there a desire to make this thing unique? Because so many of these war movies repeat the same story in the same angle, just from it without it being a particular individual story. They try to tell they try to give you the military experience and the military essence, and it doesn't really hone in on a central, unique thing. And because this isn't necessarily about one individual guy, the story is guys, right? But it's you're trying to reach a wide audience of people who would relate to this. Was uniqueness something that you were striving for?
Yeah, I mean, I think you strive to separate it, from everything that people have seen, and I think that it was daring on our part to tackle the subject matter because, when you're trying to sell a film and you say it's a film about somebody suffering from TBI and PTS, they immediately shy away. I mean, it's just.
But it's funny. It's funny.
Yeah. But
yeah, exactly.
So on that note, this is how it's unique. I mean, we really, there was. I insisted on bringing some comedy into the movie, and so it's really entertaining, but it packs a very strong emotional punch. There's a solid, social statement behind this film, and there's moments that are hard to watch, but the thing about that, the central character is that he's heroic. You're looking at a guy that has physical and emotional injuries and is displaced at the beginning of the film. He's a hero throughout the entire film. You root for him throughout the entire film. You never feel sorry for him. Maybe at the end of the movie, but it's not to give it away. But it really it's a celebration of this American hero and a call to action. And I think that in and of itself makes it stand out from the others.
When you guys are making the film, as director and producer, obviously the emotional highs and the times where you start to connect with the viewers and the audience more than others. Because neither one of you had been military, did you find it difficult to know if you were in the right spot and doing the right things and saying the right things? Did you rely on some of the guys that you had brought in, Max, to tell you that? How do you get to that spot?
I think by the time we actually went to camera, I was so confident that it was militarily accurate, that the injuries were, the injuries, the character walks a very fine line with the injuries. It's not, I didn't want them to be debilitating, but I wanted them to be present, and he deals with so many conditions in this one little story, but subtly. And, I just kind of felt like I had run this by so many guys, buddies of mine that, had similar experiences that by the time we started shooting, I wasn't too fearful that it was going to not be accurate. But, I will say this is kind of an amazing little story in our story. When we were casting, there's a role that a big lead in the film of a Marine amputee, and Mike and I were going to cast part out of Hollywood. We had all these sort of, high-end actors that on the list that we were going to choose from. And the local casting director in New Mexico said, you got to meet this guy, please, before you cast this part. Just meet this one actor. He's amazing. He's perfect for the part. So he put himself on tape. We loved it. He came in and met with us. He blew us away in the room. And while he was in the room, he said, look, I want you to know that how passionate, how much I want to be a part of this project. And, my family was military, but I also served. And I was in the Army. I jumped from an airplane. My chute got tangled. I bounced and survived. Now, I used to work at a drop zone. I used to skydive all through college. And, a hop and pop in my world was 5,000 feet. I don't know what it is in the military world, but that
not that high.
It's not that high.
It's not that high.
It's not that high.
Still, it's a good bounce.
The Army. Just as a side note, the Army does have Halo. They call high altitude, low opening jumps, which are more your free fall stuff. But most of the airborne jumps are under 2,000 feet.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, you're shooting.
It's still a.
Oh yeah, it'll make your heart race a little bit.
That's something you want to do every
right?
weekend.
Yeah, there's not a bunch of people lining up to sign up to be an airborne soldier, and you shoot. As soon as you get out of the plane, your chute automatically opens, so there is no free fall. You're just kind of slowly going down the whole way. But anyway, I'm sorry, we digress.
Anyway, his chute got tangled somehow, and it didn't open properly, and he bounced. And he survived, but he said, look, I have so much in common, with this movie because it really took 10 years. It took a decade for me to get, my full 10% benefits from the VA. And, and we were like, oh God. And, he left the room and eventually we gave him the part. And when we called to give him the role, he started crying and he told me that he was living out of his car. And, it chokes me up, but he really is, one of the guys that this story is about. And we were able to get him back up on his feet and give him a big lead in a Hollywood film. And he's amazing in it. So that was a nice little success story, and I do want to say, just add to this before we move on, but I have a lot of friends that have had incredible experiences with the VA. It's a very difficult system to navigate, allegedly, but I have had friends that have had a tremendous experience. I also have a ton of friends that have not.
You're talking to one of them. I haven't had the most pleasant experience.
Yeah, back to the guy that I met in Iraq. This is a guy who, survived 2 IEDs. Had significant injuries, and it took him 6 years to get to 20%, and it took him 8 years to get to his full, I think, 60%.
Wow.
If I'm getting the numbers right, and so. Without what I can say is that these private organizations, these private charities that are doing this work, that are making up for where the VA is failing, it's essential that we support them. They're changing lives. The 3 charities that we've chosen to support through this film, which I can talk about in a bit, but they're incredible organizations that, have managed to keep their administrative costs low and really get money and assistance to veterans in need. So it's a good thing.
And doing the hands-on work that needs to be done, and just we were in San Antonio a couple weeks ago and visited Warrior's Heart, and you just see these men and women getting the help that they need and changing lives. And Max, do you want to?
Yeah, let me talk about that for a second while we're on it. So
sure.
So we have 3 charities that we're supporting. One is called Higher Ground. It's based out of Sun Valley, Idaho. It's a charity that I've been involved with for some time now. They use recreational therapy to assist veterans in need, and they do incredible work, man, and just amazing therapy programs, and working with veterans with PTS. They opened up a branch in Los Angeles that is additionally addressing the homeless veteran community / crisis in Southern California, which I'm very passionate about helping out with. And Mike mentioned Warrior's Heart. That's one of the other charities that was started by a buddy of mine that was in the special operations community. That Warrior's Heart is assisting not only veterans, but also active duty service people and first responders that are suffering from drug and alcohol dependencies. Let me add, Higher Ground has a 3-year follow-up. So once you go through that program, they stay on you for 3 years to make sure that you're still healing and you're reintegrating properly. And I think that's amazing. And then the last charity that we're supporting is the Gary Sinise Foundation. And anybody who knows about Gary knows that there's nobody that does more for veterans than Gary Sinise. I mean, he's given his life to it. His foundation does everything from entertain through his band. I think last week they took, over 1,000 Gold Star wives and their kids to Disneyland. They're building homes for veterans. They're retrofitting homes for veterans that are disabled now. And it's an incredible program. So those are our charities that we're supporting.
Wow, that's unreal. And I've given this, this spiel a lot to people, but it's worth repeating. You talk about all these veterans organizations out there that are doing the yeoman's work that the VA isn't. It's what's frustrating from somebody in my position is that, fortunately in working through the podcast, we've come across dozens of great military charities and organizations and 501c3s, and they all have a purpose and they all have a fit, but there's a cannibalization effect that goes on, right? Because they're all fighting for dollars or donations from the same group of people, and it's hard to collect them all. And if there was a way to organize all these military charities under one umbrella, you could effectively put the VA out of business. There are two principles of war called unity of effort and economy of force. If we could apply the unity of effort and economy of force ideals to all these veterans charities, we could effectively, with private funding, put the VA out of business. Here's the problem, guys. Your friend who you talked about who has that Warrior's Heart Foundation? How do I take that personal pain or whatever the reason they're doing it? How do I take a foundation away from a mom who does a 5K every year to raise money for somebody's tuition for college? I can't take your pain away. I can't take that away from you. And why would they want to give it up? So everybody has these foundations and they're so personal to people and they're all good, just causes coming from the right place. But again, it's just one of those things where I think you guys understand where I'm coming from, that the cannibalization, it hurts us sometimes as much as it helps us.
Yeah. In my mind, we really, if we went backwards and we bettered the exit strategy post combat, and really, if we put as much effort into making sure that soldiers that are returning injured are reintegrating back into society as well and properly with care, with red carpet health care, as we do in preparing them for combat, the situation would be less grave. And and it is grave. I mean, at the end of our movie, we have a card with some very sobering statistics on it, and I'll briefly give them to you. On any given day, there's 50,000 plus American soldiers homeless on the streets of the United States. There's been over 300,000 cases of combat-related traumatic brain injuries. In 2015, an Inspector General's report stated that over 300,000 veterans had died while awaiting pending healthcare claims. I mean, that's just there's no excuse
mind-blowing.
For that.
Yeah.
And it's mind-blowing, and I still think that we're hovering in and around 20 to 22 a day taking their lives. So it's there's some issues that need to be addressed, and but look, I mean, here's the thing: it's like as long as this is not front page news anymore, and it absolutely should be. And if we can keep this country aware, and not bury it. That there still are soldiers that need help. I mean, we're recruiting kids, and I say kids, into a voluntary military system, and if you don't take care of them when they come back, then how are you encouraging others to enlist? What kind of an example are you setting? So it, like I said, it was a call to action. It really is. I mean, I really want to inspire people to get more involved than they are, and not just say I support the troops, but actually get out and support the troops. And Mike and I have always said that, at the end of this film, it really becomes a successful film in my mind once we're getting money to veteran charities. And I really want to make a spectacle of that. I want to bring in the press. I want people to see us giving that money back. It's essential. It's crucial. And I think that's what's really going to inspire, not only people in Hollywood that, I'm not sure that there has ever been a movie that's done this, that's given to charity. In my mind, I don't think there has, but inspire everybody outside of my business to do the same.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the transition. And let me just kind of put this in context for you guys. You take the average 18-year-old kid who enlists in the Army. The government, and the Army in particular, will send you to training, to basic training for 9 weeks. At the cost of $100,000+ per soldier. Then they'll send you to advanced individual training for another 9 weeks after that. And then when you get to your unit after that, you may have to go on to some follow-on training, whatever it is. Over the course of the first 18 months of your military career, think about that. It takes you 18 months to get completely trained, and the government will spend over $250,000 on you. 18 months and $250,000. On the way out the door, you get 2 weeks. 2 weeks. That's it. It's so disproportionate, it's laughable. And they spend no money on the 2 weeks. They don't send you to classes on how to build resumes and get your finances. They give you a quick PowerPoint presentation, pat you on the backside, and say, "Thanks for coming out. We appreciate it." It's disproportionate and it's wrong. And that really is something that is a sobering thought when you think about it. Mike, let me return to the film here for a second, because I do want to ask you. You've been part of acting and producing and directing for a really long time. When you finish this movie, what are your thoughts and feelings, and where does it rank for you in the things that you've done in your career?
It's the thing that I'm most proud of in my career, bar none. When you get to, we had some veterans, or a lot of veterans actually work on the film, and at the wrap party, one of our second AD gave a toast and broke down crying, and he goes, because of working on this film, I can now talk to my wife about sort of the things that I saw. Yeah. Like, how does it get any like you're literally our goal, Max and I's goal, was always to make a movie that could hopefully change a couple people's lives, and I really do think that we got a shot at doing that, and that's what we're here for. I mean, these men and women have done so much for us. The fact that we can give them a little help, or at least a little understanding, or hopefully more than a little understanding, that's the stuff that is so truly human and American.
What's really cool is I did Saving Private Ryan like many moons ago, and when we had the premiere of Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg had invited all these World War II veterans to the premiere, and we were, before the premiere, we were we're drinking beer. They're all 190 now, and my wife was there at the time, and she's they're all hitting on her, and we're laughing, and I mean, it was hilarious. And then we went into the theater to see this film. And that opening scene, man, and I looked at these guys, and their jaws were on the ground. Half of them were in tears. They went through the experience of watching this film and came out shell shocked, and started talking at the after party about their combat experiences, and so many times, and Mike, this is why I'm bringing it up, is that I heard them say, this is stuff that I'd never talked about. It really, it opened the door to a conversation that was not accessible, subject matter that was not accessible, and it was healing, and it was it was therapeutic for these guys, and necessary, and they needed it, and I think that it's difficult for a soldier to admit that that he needs help. And, I think that that's the first step that needs to happen. And it's something that happens in the story. And I think it's that moment where you go, okay, I can't do it alone, So hopefully, this movie will inspire people to get there and be brave and ask for it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is the hardest part of the whole thing. It's just recognizing that there's something to talk about and somebody to talk about with, and that is part of the greatest strides that any individual can make. Guys, how do you judge the success of this? I know you talked about wanting to give the money back, but what's the barometer for success of this film?
I think that the money is definitely a big barometer. I think that having veterans come up and say, hopefully saying we got it right, that we told an honest story, that, like I said, like having people say, I talked to my wife, or I talked to my friend, or I asked for help. I think those are all W's in my book.
Yeah. We've sent the screener out. Mike and I have screened the film probably 6 or 7 times at this point, and the screener has been, obviously we're trying to reach our audience, and our audience is anyone that's served, or anyone that's connected to someone that's served, or anyone that cares about our military. You know what I mean? So it's the patriots, and so in getting on these radio shows or podcasts, or doing these magazine articles that cater to our core audience, we've you send out a screener often, before they'll accept interviewing you, and the feedback that I've gotten, having done so many of these at this point, that is just tremendous, man. I mean, I can't tell you how many soldiers have said, buddy, I'm 6'5", 290, and I could barely keep my eyes dry.
That's awesome.
So it's like Mike said, it's a win. I think we got a big win. So.
I mean, not knowing what the general public reaction is, you went through the screeners. I have you had that moment yet where you look back at the scene and go, wow, look at the impact that we had, look at how many lives we're going to change, and has that set in yet to you, or you kind of need some more validation when it really hits the masses and gets released?
I mean, I think it's set in for me. What's also set in is, like, the next movie's not going to have this kind of potential behind it. So like Mike said, I think, for me, it's been hands down the best experience I've ever had. And I've been in this business for 25 years, and, and making a living for 25 years. So I've just, and I've been really fortunate to have worked, with some of, like, this Hollywood's, most talented people. I mean, but this experience for me was just life changing, I don't know. I mean, Mike and I talked about, we've started a company as a result of this film, and, and we've talked about making this kind of our mandate, that we do films that, that have social statements, or that, that have the possibility of getting to a charity or giving back, or, it just makes the medium so much more important and so much more useful, Not that something that's purely that is just pure entertainment value isn't useful, because I think it is, but this elevates the game. It raises the bar a little bit,
And it's such a powerful medium. I mean, you get to change people. You get an opportunity to change people's lives, either in a meaningful way, or, like, I'll go on the other side. I loved Caddyshack, and sometimes you just want to laugh. And so you get to do that, and that alleviates, the silliness of the day. So, or the hardness of the day. So that's the good stuff, and so that's what we get to do, and I'm eternally grateful to Freddie Joe Farnsworth. But please don't tell him, because we'll hold it over my head.
Yeah, don't tell him.
So as you guys go forward in this process, do you have any nerves? I mean, the movie's going to come out next month. Do you have any nerves about the whole thing going, or have had the screenings give you enough to relax about? I mean, where are you emotionally with all this right now?
I'll just speak for myself. January 8th at the premiere, and then January 11th when it opens. I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I'm not going to lie. On the 12th, I'll be okay probably, but on those 2 days before it goes out, I'll probably,
This is why God invented beer.
Exactly. I
We'll
might
be
have a
having a lot
cocktail
of
or
beer.
two.
I'm a little anxious. I think the big night for us is the premiere on the 8th, and then the 11th it opens, and it's just waiting for numbers and seeing how it's doing, But we've been able to, with the help of people like you, we've been able to reach just a massive audience, and I think the word's out, and let's see. It's a great film, and here's kind of the fun thing. The good thing about what we've done is, you're just by watching the film, you're helping. We're giving back, and so the groundwork's been done. The charities have been picked out. The movie's been made. Just flip it on VOD or go to the theater and see it, and that's a give back. And it's a beautiful thing.
Would you guys, when you guys meet soldiers and you talk to them and everything else, and they give you the validation that you got it right, is that enough for you to say, I don't care what critics say, because that's not really the audience we're trying to reach? Or is this more about, reaching a broad audience and even getting to people who aren't military members?
Yeah, Mike and I have always, we've always known that this was, it was going to be a tough movie to get made, and it was going to be a tough movie to sell potentially, because it's such an American story. And by the way, like having been over to the Middle East, I know there were a lot of countries involved in that conflict, but this is a largely American story, and so we know it was going to be difficult to get foreign sales out of it. We knew that because of that, that might hinder the chances of getting acquired by a big studio. But we found this great company, Cinedigm, and they called us immediately after having seen it and said, we love this movie. We were all in tears. We want to they've gotten behind it. They've hired a great PR team. They've gotten us a ton of press, and and it's called, with the release that we got is called the day and date release. We're showing in select cities, and there's, I think, what is it, like 15 major cities?
Yeah, 15 cities. And then also you can get it when you have the in theaters now portion of your DirecTV or your cable show or cable channel, you can pick it out there. So because we're in
So it's
theaters,
on VOD.
Yeah.
Basically,
Right.
Yeah, and it releases on VOD simultaneously. So, if you don't have to leave your house, I think that's going to work for us, and people can watch it from their living rooms, and my only advice is turn the volume up. There's some good little combat sequences. Just keep the volume loud for me, do me a favor. But I think this release will work for us, and the DVD and Blu-ray comes out February 18th?
18th, yes.
18th, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, your passion is admirable. Clearly, this is hit to you guys, from the inside out. It's one of those projects that's not work, it's love, and I can hear that in both of your voices. And I am excited as all hell to put my eyes on this thing beyond all belief. And I can't thank you guys enough for taking time with us. But moreover, understanding the and wanting to understand the empathy for the military plight, for lack of a better term, of what we've gone through and what we go through after we take the uniform off. That empathy is so important, and spreading that, I think, really, to me, without having seen the film, is the calling card of what I want to leave the listeners with at this point in time, because that is something I think that empathy of the human condition and the military condition after the fact is just not spread across enough to the average citizen.
I absolutely 100% agree with you. I would love to encourage people to follow me on social media, because once this movie releases, I have a feeling that the social media accounts that are attached to the film will probably go stagnant. But if you follow mine, like I said, Mike and I really want to make a spectacle of the give back, and we'll be posting and posting about, press that's upcoming. And that's a great way to follow us and follow the charitable efforts. My Instagram is Max Martini LA, and my Twitter is @MaxMartini LA. So it's the same handle essentially. And yeah, please follow us. Please tell your friends about the movie. Please share it if you like it. And yeah, we're just beyond appreciative and beyond excited.
Final thoughts from you, Mike?
I'm just so grateful, and just we can't wait to hear what the people that we made the movie for think of the movie. That's one of the things that I'm most excited about.
Well, again, I can't thank you both enough for your time. I know it's a busy time of year and everything, but certainly we're everybody here wishing you the best of luck with the film, the release, and everything going forward, and the charities that are going to benefit from this thing, obviously, are all just great things going forward. So with that, Michael Hagerty, Max Martini, thank you guys so much for being part of the Hazard Ground.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You've been listening to the Hazard Ground Podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno and produced by Matt Pasquarella. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at hazardgroundpodcast@gmail.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.